Capcom has dropped the best title update so far, with new armors, weapons, monsters, arenas, and a teaser of a whole new mechanic. Yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Easily one of the best title updates in all of Monster Hunter, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about Lagiacrus. New moves, old moves, all moves. This monster does damage. The difficulty is up there with low tempered mizutsune and its normal state. Non-tempered mizutsune wasn't much of a challenge until its tempered fight. Plus that 8-star tempered fight was to be compared as the second hardest monster, or even the third if you want to put 8-star tempered Zosia. Lagiacrus in its normal state is definitely up there in difficulty. Okay, maybe y'all think I'm just chatting, right? I'm about to show and compare the difference in damage with these monsters. So I'm not gonna lie, I started off fighting the monster with my HUD off and no palico. I promise you, I wasn't doing it on purpose. And this monster really showed me that it's not a walk in the park type monster. No joke, I'm stubborn, so this monster carded me like 6 times. Turning my HUD back on, I was curious on how much damage a non-tempered Lagiacrus can do. From a non-boosted attack, it did around 33% of damage. That's actually scary, especially when it's charged up. Now, I'm comparing mizutsune 8-star to see the damage difference with, of course, the same armor. Now, its launch attack did about the same damage, and of course, both monsters are not amped up. Now, let's see the difference between mizutsune tail attack amped up and Lagiacrus's voltage body attack. Looking at that damage, you can clearly see mizutsune did more damage. But I know what y'all are gonna say. That's not even as strong as lightning attack. Well, I couldn't get it since I already finished the hunt, but with that damage scaling, we can get an estimate of how much damage it would do. I believe around a 0.5 multiplier, we could give that as a rough estimate. Now, let's see the test of these 4 monsters' damage. Of course, tempered 8-starred Lagiacrus and mizutsune, 8-starred tempered Zosia, and finally, the strongest monster in the whole of Wilds, 8-starred tempered Gore Magala. Let's start with these 2 monsters since we already started the test with them. Lagiacrus bite did 30% of damage and the electric shot did 33% of damage. Both of these attacks are Lagiacrus's weakest attacks. Now, mizutsune bite did about 20%, following up with this charge attack doing 33% of damage. Those are both mizutsune's weak moves besides his non-damaging bubble attack. It also has a flip attack that does almost half of the hunter's health compared to Lagiacrus's discharge attack. Both attacks do about half of the damage to the hunters. So far, Lagiacrus's weak moves does more consistent damage. Next is Enraged. Mizutsune's spin tail slap does a little over half health of damage. Comparing it to Lagiacrus's giant discharge attack, it beats it way over the compared damage scale. Now, both monsters have a 90% to a 1-shot attack, unless you have Divine Blessing kicking in. Enraged mizutsune bite attack jumps to 60% of damage, just as its flame giant bubble, and its tail attack does exactly 50% of damage. My health right now is around 33%, and I carded, so I would say the damage is roughly 60%, and all of the attacks in the water does the same amount of damage as all the attacks on land. Mizutsune has more attacks that can do a lot of damage, but Lagiacrus attacks consistently do 33 to 60% when not enraged and when enraged. I would say 8-star tempered Lagiacrus is a tougher fight than 8-star tempered mizutsune, though it can go either way. What puts Lagiacrus over the edge is due to the fact that anytime you get hit, you're taking minimum 30% of damage. Compared to mizutsune, the damage varies, especially if the monster becomes fatigued. Next is Zosia. First form has about 3 moves. Second and third form has 2 new moves with recurrent moves from form 1. One hand ground attack does the same amount of damage as Lagiacrus's bite. Zosia's charge attack and 2-hand slam attack does a tiny bit more damage than Zosia's electric mouth attack. Very minimal, but still more damage. Just like the other 2 monsters, this monster also has a 1-shotting move. No Divine Blessing can save you from this though. Phase 2 and 3 have a fireball attack that does over half the hunter's health, along with this 2-hand slam, and its charge attack that does the same amount of damage from its first phase. Comparing that with all of Lagiacrus's attacks when enraged, Lagiacrus enraged attacks does more damage compared to all of Zosia's attacks in the second and third form. Even though Lagiacrus has the upper hand on damage when enraged, there are times when Lagiacrus does slow down, making his damage go around 30% of the hunter's health. And there is Zosia, especially on its final form, stays consistent with the damage output. It still can be a coin toss, but I would say Zosia is technically the more difficult fight. You can make a claim that it takes a while for Zosia to get to his other phases, which is fair, but it does beat Lagiacrus in longevity. If you don't card from Lagiacrus in its early stages of the hunt when enraged, you will have an easier time beating the monster compared to Zosia with all of his phases. The longer you fight Zosia, the more difficult it gets. I believe Lagiacrus is the harder fight, but that just might be me not fully getting used to the monster's hunts. So in conclusion, I will put Zosia more difficult than Lagiacrus. Now, it's time for this demon of a monster. No words can describe its damage. I just want you to look at this. Every move does way over 50% of health. No need for comparison. This monster still reigns supreme over all the monsters in Monster Hunter Wilds. Yeah, I suck with those type of edits. Alright y'all, I know I missed a monster or two on the list, but I have a different video in mind for that. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment down below what y'all think, and have a nice day. Peace.